Well, good evening. I couldn't let the occasion go by. What a 48 hours. It's rare for things to have happened in the way the last 48 hours has been. The government defeated twice on important matters, the Yvette Cooper amendment and the ever so important Dominic Grieve amendment. And all Dominic Grieve sought to do was to involve the members of Parliament, to involve Parliament more openly and more involved in the process. Now, yes, the Speaker did break with convention, did break against precedent, but as he said, the precedent that probably has existed for decades upon decades. If we just follow precedent, it means Parliament never changes, never moves on. And isn't there anything more important than Brexit for members of Parliament to be involved with and to participate in? But the government, you see, throughout the whole process, has sought to deny Parliament its opportunities. Article 50 had to go to the Supreme Court. They tried to introduce the notification of Article 50 without the involvement of Parliament. The backstop, they tried to deny members of Parliament being given the legal advice. Then back to Article 50 again, Mrs May received legal advice as to whether we could stop Article 50. Throughout the last 18 months, she has denied its existence and has not allowed for it to be published. Now, constitutional outrage? Did you see the hour and a half that Burqa had to tolerate? The challenges, the open challenges to him personally, the attacks on him personally. You rarely see that in Parliament. And if you read the right-wing press today, The Sun, The Mail and The Express, they are vitriolic against him. But there have been endless constitutional outrages and nothing has been said. The papers have said nothing. Mrs May has sought to avoid Parliament, to mislead Parliament, and so has David Davis and other ministers. Media, the Brexiteer MPs, all quiet. But yesterday they were taught a lesson. Yesterday they realised the consequences, the implications of the Grieve amendment. And it is a significant moment. If Mrs May doesn't win next Tuesday, then all bets are off. Endless, well, not endless, 3 or 4 possibilities exist. Anyway, but before going there, let's go back to the constitutional outrages. First one, she was very clever. We'd have a 2-year session of Parliament, meaning no Queen's speech, no legislation agenda. Very clever. The second outrage, minority government. What did they do? They decided that standing committees should have a majority of Tory MPs. Unheard of. It's always based on the number of MPs each party has in Parliament. But she said, no, no, no. Despite a minority government, despite another constitutional outrage, having to bribe the DUP to get them on board, we will pack these select committees. The media? Silence. David Davis and these sector analysis reports? Well, what did he say? They existed, They didn't exist. And if they do exist, they're not worth the paper they're printed on, he said. He had to be forced to publish them. All along the line, things of that kind have had to happen. Then the Henry VIII clauses, which is, Henry VIII one means that the government could repeal acts, legislate without involving Parliament. That had to be stopped. At every stage, for 18 months, there have been far worse outrages going on than what happened yesterday. Yesterday wasn't an outrage. It was the Speaker saying, quite sensibly, in a modern democracy, on the biggest issue of our times, members of Parliament have rights and Parliament has to be involved. What's wrong with that? That's pretty obvious. But still, it was historical. Reminded me a bit of twice that I came across something similar during the Common Market debate of 1971. That was heated. There were quite scenes in those days, but nothing like yesterday, mind. Then the Industrial Relations Act. Well, that was... I seem to remember Labour MPs singing the red flag in that one. In the voting lobbies. There have been occasions of that kind, but it was a sight to behold. And I have to compliment Bercow. What a man. He withstood all that pressure. He took them on. And not only did he take them on, he took them on in a nice, calm way. Very good, very clever. And he deserves our thanks, not vitriol. He deserves the thanks of the country that he has placed Parliament at the centre of the whole process. Well, there we go. As I said, God knows what will happen. The forecast is, I don't know whether this is right, mate. The BBC are forecasting Mrs May could lose by over 200 votes. Well, mathematically that is possible. I reckon it'll be less than that. 100 will be devastating. 200, well, I'm not quite sure where we go from there. And then the Grieve Amendment, she's going to come back within 3 days with Plan B. And they're still not learning. This evening, Downing Street have announced, when she announces Plan B, there will be a 90-minute debate and only one amendment to her motion. So there's going to be a row about that, because that's totally unreasonable. You know, when she pronounces and announces her Plan B, that should be a full-day debate, because it's important. Because what Plan B and the Grieve Amendment gives the opportunity to, and this is what she's afraid of, and that's why she's sticking down to one amendment. There could be several amendments, where there's several options put before the House of Commons. The Norway option, the Canada option, the People's Vote option. Could be 3 or 4 of them. And she wants to avoid that. So let's see what happens. But come to the options, there's one that I'm a bit concerned about, really. Jeremy Corbyn says we must have a general election. Well, maybe we should. I'd be very surprised if he won the vote of no confidence. Very surprised indeed. But that's party policy, and he's got to go through the process, I suppose. But let's go to that general election quickly. He is saying, if he wins, Brexit still carries on. It'll just be a different Brexit. It'll be a jobs Brexit. There's no such thing as a jobs Brexit. There is no such thing. The best steel in town is where we are now. That can never be improved on at all. We can reform the EU, and that's maybe something that we should get involved with. But the general election won't solve the fundamental issue. And by the way, and I'll finish with this, a few Labour MPs are hinting they're going to vote with the government, and they're looking for a way out, a peg to hang their coat on. And that is on workers' rights and environmental standards and the things like that. It will not be legally binding. Mrs. May can say, yes, 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 we'll do all that. It doesn't matter a fig, because she hasn't got to do it, because none of it is in the political agreement, but the political agreement is not binding. So there we go. Interesting times. Interesting times. And we're only halfway through till next Tuesday or Wednesday. But if it's 200 majority or 100 majority, what's the betting? And she's going to pull the vote again. Eh? What's the betting on that? For another day. Cheers.